Today, it's another expert roundup, restaurant expert roundup, and I'm with the author of this book right here, the Restaurant Operators HR Playbook. Carrie, introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are.
Sure. My name, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show
You're
and
welcome.
for your patience during my issues getting on here. My name is Carrie Luxem. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Restaurant HR Group. I'm a really passionate restaurant industry person. I've been in this industry since I was 15 years old, started at Dairy Queen in Rockford, Illinois, just talking about Rockford. And I have been very passionate about this industry since then. I worked for my very first job, really showed me what the restaurant industry could do for a person when you have great leadership and you have simple systems. So I went on to work for Potbelly Sandwich Works, which is a small sandwich shop. When I started with them, there were 3 restaurants when I started in the late 90s, and I stayed there for a decade. We opened a couple hundred restaurants. I really mastered how to support restaurant operators with their people systems and processes. And for the last 10 years, I've been operating Restaurant HR Group and Carrie Luxem LLC. And essentially, these 2 companies, I support restaurants with HR payroll benefits. We handle training. I do keynotes, write books, things like that. So that's the quick version of my backstory and my life story.
Yeah, we were talking before we went live that my dad's from Rockford, Illinois, where you're from. So it's a small world. I don't think I've ever met anybody from Rockford besides my dad and his family.
That's too funny.
So is it correct? Is your husband also involved in the restaurant business?
Yes. So I actually met my husband at Potbelly, and
Okay.
he was like the first operator, started when there were a few stores, and we worked together for a long time. And then he left and did some things, went to Chipotle, went public with Chipotle. Then he started in the Dunkin' world, and he's a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee here in the Chicagoland area. So he's got a couple dozen stores, and he's a very, very good operator. He's very different personality from me. Maybe we'll talk about that later, but he's a really great guy and a really great restaurant operator.
Yeah. So I'm this would be impossible for me and my company HR. Like, people ask me, I've been self-employed since '99. I've had a few stints in different places, as second jobs, so to speak. But like now, I've been 100% on my own since '08, and I always joke that I'm unhirable. I'm not sure there's a manual that would work for me.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm sure you're hireable, Matt.
So what was the driving force behind the book? When did you write it, and what was the driving force? And by the way, if you're watching, go to Amazon, buy it. You can probably buy it on her website, carrieluxem.com as well, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So as I supported operators at Potbelly, I really started to wrap my arms around, when you run a restaurant, to be successful, you've got to have simple processes, simple systems. And my world was HR and people, and you've got to be able to develop great leaders. And so as I did that, I really learned how to do these things in a very simple way, because simplicity is the key to the success in creating these systems, in hiring and developing leaders, and that sort of thing. So as I left Potbelly and I started my own business, my business grew and grew and grew, and my clients saw less and less of me. And, I had actually one of my clients say, you should write this stuff down. You should start doing content. You should write a book. I'm like, that's not a bad idea. So the first part of this, systems and leadership, Restaurant Operators HR Playbook it's 11 chapters, and it's essentially the life cycle of the employee. So it's culture, then it's recruiting, hiring, onboarding, and essentially through the life cycle of an employee all the way through termination. And I talk about leadership and stuff, but it's really how you build an HR system or function in your restaurant through the entire life cycle of an employee. So I think, it's basically a chapter, and then at the end of every chapter, there's a worksheet. So you actually, it's very hands-on, and you have to take the time to do the things in the book that will help you. You've been doing your homework, Matt. I appreciate that. Yep. So I'm in the process of writing a second book, which is a soft skills playbook, which is more touching on the things that you need in terms of your interpersonal skills to have success as an employee, as a franchisee, as a business owner. It's those soft skills. So it's kind of like a hard skills and soft skills come together. And so my inspiration was really, I love this industry. I love the restaurant industry. And I know when people have success growing their restaurants and having success, profitable success in their restaurants, they can give more opportunities to people like me or whomever, all walks of life. And it's just it's the backbone of our economy. The restaurants succeed, it's just a win all the way around. So I want to help restaurateurs set these systems up very simply and talk about the things that helps them in building a culture that's a great one and that sort of thing. So that's really where it came from. So I just every day, the book is just one of the resources that I have. I really like to pump out a lot of content on social media that really gives a lot of the advice of the things that I'm dealing with all of my clients. They're calling us. I like to give those little pieces of information out there little by little, because no one's going to sit down and read my entire book and be able to figure it all out, And so then I have that book. I'm writing the second book. We have we do little training type workshops and things like that. So I'm just trying to create all kinds of activities. Everybody learns differently. And so everybody has different wants and needs to learn. So I'm just trying to add value out there into this industry.
I love it. I follow you on Instagram. I follow you on Facebook. That's how I see a lot of things you put out there. And I think it's the most, we weren't talking about marketing this time, but it's the most underutilized tool that a lot of restaurants have at their disposal for free is marketing. And you and I have the same thing. Like somebody the other day was like, man, Matt, why do you go live so much? Why do you do so much content? I'm like, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything to go on live on Facebook like this or YouTube or LinkedIn. And it's a great place to put a message out there. Like you said, everybody digests content differently. Some people like to read it. A guy asked me this. I was on a podcast today, Donald Burns, and he asked me what's my favorite audiobook, and I said I don't do them. I find that when I'm doing an audiobook, next thing I know I'm looking at something over there, and I'm on my phone, and I'm like, what am I listening to? What's going on?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So everybody's just different.
Yep. So let's dig into the book, because one of the things one thing I liked about it is a lot of books and even conferences. Like I'd go to a seminar and I'd watch something and there's not much takeaway. It's like you hear a bunch of great stuff, you go to the next one, you forget what the heck you just did. I liked how each chapter had at the end of it, okay, here's my takeaways, kind of building out my plan there. I love that idea. I'm going to steal something from that for my third book coming out this year. So I'm going to take a little note from that. But I made 3 notes in here. And the first note I made was on page 12. And it talks about, question 3, put in here in a couple sentences, your purpose. And I think or our purpose, I think that's a missed focus sometimes when hiring people, to let them know what the restaurant stands for, so that the people know why they're there, what they're expected.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, you hear people say like, what's your why? And I think this is a hard thing for a lot of business owners and restaurateurs and chefs to really tackle and understand. And as I was writing the book, even I'm like, what is really my why, right? Do I want to make money? Do I want to grow? I want to make a difference. What is really my why? And it took some of those activities to really narrow down my focus on my why. But I think it is different for everybody. Why do you do what you do? And I think really understanding that and doing some of these little activities will help you think about that through a little bit more than if you never focus on it or ask yourself those tough questions.
Yeah. And also, I guess, conveying the message to your team, because I think a lot of times, like restaurants, I look at a restaurant versus a retail store. Somebody goes to a retail store, they go in there, they buy a jacket, they leave. Somebody's coming to a restaurant to spend time, a meal is probably 30 to 40 minutes at the minimum, sometimes an hour to 2. And so, that employee not understanding that and understanding the purpose of why the restaurant exists to make that person's experience awesome, I think can really impact their thinking of why they're doing what they're doing every day.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Sue, it's like I think about my own little business, right? Like what we do at Restaurant HR Group is we handle the outsourcing for HR, payroll, and benefits. So we're doing the administration. Why I do what we do is we're trying to create more restaurant success stories. So I get restaurateurs believe in the things that I believe, therefore they buy my my services, because I get them to really connect with what it is we're trying to do. I want your restaurant to be more successful. And I know if you build simple people systems and you focus on hiring and developing great leaders, the chance of you having more success grows a ton, so that's the connection. And I know you want to be more successful, and I want to help you do that. So each and every restaurateur, and I think there's a lot of similarities in why people do restaurant. They want to serve great food, they want to build a great family environment, culture and that sort of thing. But every restaurateur, every concept, every group has their special thing. And even if you don't want to call it purpose or what's your why, it's like it's really just like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What are you excited about? What is the impact you want to make? What do you want your employees to feel when they walk into your restaurant? What do you want your customers or guests to feel when they come into your restaurant each and every day? And just trying to understand that. So
Okay, so I'll put you on the hot seat again. So the next part I went to was page 35, and I think this is something that, unfortunately, most people in the restaurant world, the employees, aren't trained on enough. And it's your hourly staff. It's how to diffuse a situation with an upset customer. I just think that there's too many times where, that person that might have got hired a week ago, all of a sudden is dealing with the fact that this coupon's expired or that their meal was cold, and they're like, okay, nobody talked about this stuff.
Mm-hmm. So what's your question? Like how?
Yeah. So what are some things that you've seen, or what are some best practices that you would suggest that restaurants, to help that, to make sure that people are prepared for when a customer comes up that's angry, or maybe giving them some decision-making power to fix the problem?
Yeah. Well, and this is another area where everybody's idea, or everybody empowers their employees differently. So I literally think you take it way back to the first couple chapters, or the beginning. When you're hiring people, you need to set the expectations with who you are, what you believe, what you expect, how you expect them to behave, what your values are, and then you live that every day. And I find the restaurateurs that really understand who they are and how they want people to behave, they do a really nice job of hiring for that in the very early. They know how to recruit the right people. They recruit in a very diverse way. They bring people on and interview them and ask the right questions to gauge if they're going to be kind when something happens with a customer, and that sort of thing. And then bringing them through the hiring process, and then extending the offer, reiterating your cultural values and all that good stuff. Then as you take them through the onboarding and the orientation and the training, you're always reiterating it, not with just what you say, but the way that you behave. I see too often restaurateurs get mad at employees for treating customers in a certain way, but that owner or operator is treating the employees the same way that person is treating the customers. So if you want people to treat each other kindly and be nice, be that way to them, like model that behavior. So lead by example, if you will. And again, it really comes down to, you can direct people to say certain things, or, but if you really empower people, hire great people, and you empower them to do a great job, and, pat them on their back when they do those things that you love. They got an umbrella and walked the customer out when it was raining. Really make a big deal about that. Or if a customer snaps and, is rude, and then they're rude back, talk about why that isn't something that you want to do, and being a bigger person and all that. So, but that's a lot of work, Matt. And to live a culture like that, to really have a whole system from the beginning to the end, with how you bring people in, how people exit into your company. If you do it all, if you're really focused on it throughout the whole life cycle of an employee, every single day you are consistent, which is the key, in your behaviors and your actions and your words, then people are going to respond to those customers in a way that fits in what your expectation is and what you're allowing. Your employees are going to behave in a way that you allow them to behave. So if somebody snaps on a customer and you don't really do anything about it, it's now okay. So it's not a one chapter thing. It's really about how you behave and how you interact, and what actions and what you tolerate every single day as the leaders of your company.
Yeah, and I agree completely. And I think that I see that. I've seen it where a manager, been in the back for a lot of restaurants and
Yeah.
helping with run their marketing and get deep. And you see how somebody talks to another person. I remember telling the one guy, like he looked at me as like he was my superior. He thought because he was the manager of the restaurant and we're the marketing guys. And I'm like, dude, you can't talk to people like that. He's like, excuse me. I'm like, that's gonna one, you just demean the lady, and two, she's gonna go out there now. She's not in a good mood, and then three, that's just gonna if she's not the right person, it's gonna carry through. But
Yeah.
when you look at also diffusing situations and making people happy, I'm amazed the number of restaurants that don't train or give people empower them to understand what the right decision is when something goes wrong. And I've got many clients I deal with that they say, hey, my employees have gift cards in their pockets. They have I don't hire people I don't trust. And so like you say, oh, I don't people stealing from me. Well, I don't hire people I think are going to steal from me. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that if they're at the counter and a customer comes up and something went wrong, make it right as quick as possible. Make the customer 100% happy, so you have a lot more chance to swing the bat with that customer in the future versus making a big squabble over a $2 order of French fries.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. And no, Matt, I really think when owners and operators and leaders and managers really put an emphasis on treating their employees in a way that's like they're the customer,
Yeah.
it trickles down, and it really truly does happen that way. But very often it's like, these are my employees, I'm supposed to dictate and kind of discipline instead of mentoring and coaching. They do that, and then they're always fighting and battling how they treat customers and stuff. So again, is it easy? Of course it's not. Building an amazing team, even if you use a sports analogy, building an amazing baseball team or basketball team, obviously it takes a lot of time to recruit the players, and you got to coach them, and you got to stay on them, and you got to be honest with them. You've got to reward them. And that's every day. You got to hold them accountable for showing up to practice and being nice to their teammates and that sort of thing. It's very similar in operating a business, and it's a lot of work, and it's a day in and day out grind that some just don't want to do. They think it's just easier to dictate and to put, like you say, this exact sentence to customers. And then that culture is that way, it just feels like that. So
now tying this in with management, I saw something in here that took me back, and I'll tell you a quick story on it. It makes me chuckle every time I remember the story, but it's talking about leadership trainings and the different types of people. You got people that, all of us have different personalities. Yeah. And I commonly have heard, I was going through a business training. This was when we had a boat and RV dealership for 10 years, and it was in the middle of it. And we had went through a training because we were having just lots of management issues. Like every manager hated each other. And it was funny because everyone was good people. It's just, there was all these little conflicts. And so we all took a test, and we got a test. And then I think we had to give 7 people our test, and they handed them back in, and John got them, the guy who did all this guy named John Kiefer in Cincinnati, called the results group. And he got them all, and he analyzed it. And we actually had the meeting at my house. We're in the basement. We got the projector up on the wall. We got 7 managers sitting there, including myself. And he's got these 4 quadrants. And he's like, I'm going to show you this. This is a result. And he shows the 4 quadrants. It explains who they are, like what's an aggressive person, what's this. And then he puts the stats up there for ours. And every manager was in the aggressive quadrant.
Everybody was the same.
Yeah. And he's like, I got one first question. Who hired you, Matt? You, Matt, you, Matt, you, Matt. He's like, okay. And we would agree that Matt's an aggressive personality. He's a type A. He's a decision maker. He's got these qualities. Yeah. And Matt, why did you hire these people? I'm like, oh, I like this about her and this about him. And he's like, you hired yourself. Right. And he's like, your bookkeeper should not be in the aggressive quadrant. Your service manager should not be in the aggressive quadrant. And he's like, this is the problem. And he said, he tied it all back. He's like, now you guys are all, from what I've seen, very good at what you do, but what you aren't good at is understanding how to work with each other. And he's like, that was his training, was every manager, you need to know who your managers are, and then understand if you're hiring an employee to be underneath that manager, they got to have the right personalities that kind of are going to go together. That was the exact opposite we had. And then we fixed it because we now knew, okay, that's why you hate when I do this, because you do it. And it just kind of went that way. So I guess talk about that in the restaurant world.
Well, it's really interesting. I'm thinking of something probably that's not even entering into your brain as you're talking about, all these people are the same. That does happen a lot. And I'm guilty of it. Like, I want to hire people that are super energetic and entrepreneurial and whatever. You're absolutely right, though. It doesn't work if everybody's exactly like me, or like, and whether I think I have good qualities or not. So it kind of goes back to really making an effort into hiring a very diverse team of people that are not like you, people that are older and younger and different backgrounds and different. That is so important. And when you really can bring them together and everybody's really different and you focus on working together, and how do you do that? It's hard. People are complex. People that are the same are complex. People that are different are complex. And so, I mean, I think there's just a lot of things that you can do. There's certain training sessions that you can have, but it's really, again, kind of tying back into values. I mean, my team, I have a small team at my company. We are all so incredibly different backgrounds, different educations, different experiences, different ages, different races, different everything, but we're all very good people. We're all respectful. We all have passion in our, for certain things. So we have a lot of similarities in terms of how we treat others and stuff. So I think talking about that, and I do think there's a, I think this goes back to maybe even school days to, jobs and different companies. There's not a lot of focus, a lot of times, especially in restaurants, on soft skills, on how to have, build relationships, and how can you become a better communicator, and how do you adapt to different styles. I mean, you'll see in a restaurateur will teach a server how to adapt to a table of teenagers and then a table of elderly women. Here's how you work it differently. But when it comes to your team, you're going to work with some people that are a little bit different than you, or older than you, or younger than you, or different backgrounds. Let's talk about how you're going to work together. And, it's not always just customer focused. So I think there's a lot of training, a lot of coaching, a lot of time that can be spent on how to handle your interpersonal skills, how to be a stronger problem solver and work with people who are different than you, and handling conflict. I talk a lot about those things because they really matter. That's, if you can master your soft skills, you can have success almost anywhere you go, and it's really about a restaurant operator focusing, as much time as they do on the hard skills training as they do on the soft skills training.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I was forced into that because, in my mid 20s, I became in charge of 40 people at a, $15 million a year boat dealership. And I was not equipped to manage. I was equipped to do my thing. But next thing you know, I'm in charge of hiring. And I'm like, this guy looks good. This guy's good. I like their personality. It's like I hired a bunch of mini Matts, and it
Well, and I think too, you're talking about managing, and we're talking about leading. I mean, you manage things in a restaurant. Like you manage the tasks in a business. So important. My days are filled with little tasks and things that I have to do to keep my business functioning day in and day out. But you lead and you inspire and you influence people. And if you can separate those two and do those two things very, very well, then you will have a very good connection of, hard skills and soft skills and that sort of thing.
No, I like that. And you're I never have I heard that analogy, but you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you manage somebody, you're putting your thumb on them. Whereas if you show them what to do in the beginning, and you lead them down that path and let them do it.
The truth is, man, some people do want the thumb on them. Some people want to be told, like, you need to do these 10 things or whatever, but you're able to influence them or inspire them. You're a great leader because you're recognizing that that's what they want, right? Most people want to be hired, taught what to do, and left alone to do it, to be empowered to do it. Some people want a little bit more hand-holding or managing or directing or dictating. But I do think if you focus on having really great systems in all aspects of your restaurant, and you manage those systems really, really well. And there's a lot of great people out there that do manage restaurants well because they manage those systems very well. But leading people is about making an emotional connection. It's about influencing. It's about inspiring the people around you. And if you can, like I said just a couple seconds ago, if you could become very good at those two things, understanding these systems and how to manage it, and really understanding how to make a connection, with people, and you're a good person, that's going to be a win for you.
Love it. So I guess wrapping up, tell us about your company, what you do for restaurants, how they can work with you, how they can find out about you.
Yeah. So basically I have two companies. I have Restaurant HR Group. That's where we basically handle the HR, payroll, and benefits administration. So we're an outsourced service. We do all the heavy lifting. operators don't want to do their payroll and benefits and HR, we handle it. Then Carrie Luxem LLC, that's my personal brand. That's where I do keynotes. I write these books. I do training. We have a membership platform where we have many members. They reach out to us through our platform when they need advice. We have a ton of content on there and things like that. So that is basically it for my two companies.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and everybody out there in internet land, go to Amazon, go to carrieluxem.com, and that is CarrieLuxem. And where you watch this at, there'll be a link down here. Check her out. Check out her book. If you're a restaurateur, an operator, owner, make sure you're doing things right. Make sure you're doing them by the book. And I'm always a big proponent of hire professionals. You shouldn't do your payroll. You shouldn't do your own taxes. You shouldn't do your own benefits. You shouldn't do your own legal work. But sometimes a lot of people try and do it. So reach out to Carrie and her team, and I'm sure they can take care of you. And Carrie, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Matt.
See you later.
Bye-bye.